Hi, and welcome to FaerieQuest. Today we are going to look at a couple of photographs of real Bigfoot, only closer to fairy size. I really don't know if we can call these beings Bigfoot. However, Bigfoot puts an image in our minds because we're familiar with the word. So when we say Bigfoot, we automatically see an image of a tall being, all hairy, and so forth. And that's kind of what these little guys look like. So I'm going to show you right in my Photoshop these photographs and also close-ups and so on of each of these and give a little bit of information about each. So here is the first one, and this was taken as we were on our way to Harper's Ferry, Iowa on June 5th, 2016. And I took this photograph from the car as we were going about 60 miles an hour. And as you can see, the photograph is quite blurred because of the movement. And so the photograph itself is not that great, and I usually would discard them. However, I saw this little guy up here when I got home and started going through my photographs. I did not see him as I was taking the photo. So I'm going to crop and enlarge this so that you can see as well. And I could have done this beforehand, but I kind of want you to see the process in which I go through to some degree. All right, I've cropped him. And in most cases, I do not do any more than 100 pixels on the width side, adding to it. So right now it's 364. I'm going to go 464 and see how well we can see him. Not great. So let's take him up a little bit more. We're going to do it with the magnifying glass instead. Okay, this creates a pretty big blur because most of the time these creatures are not at all big. A lot of the fairies that I take photos of are smaller than the leaves around them. This guy is a little bit different in that respect. I'm going to take it down just a titch. Okay, so what we see here, and you know, this can be questionable. It's okay if you don't quite agree that this is something. However, after looking at many, many fairy photographs, I have determined that there is much more to what is photographed than most people believe. So anyway, what we're seeing here, we've got one eye, two eyes, the nose, and you can actually see the nostrils in the nose. A mouth is here, and chubby-like cheeks. The other side isn't quite, it's almost as though he's got his head turned a certain way, and it's difficult to see. We also have an ear and an ear, and he is hairy. You know, there's no doubt about it, he's hairy. Even, you know, what we can see of the body is quite hairy. And it looks as though he is coming out of like a cave. And if we would go back to the original photograph, uncrop it, I'm just going to uncrop everything and then bring it down so that we can see it at 100%. It looks like there's a little cave behind him that he is actually coming out of, and you can kind of see a little bit more of the body when it's further away. So this is the first one. This is just a bluff that was on the road on our way to Harper's Ferry, Iowa to the effigy mounds, and so I call it an eastern bluff. The second photograph was taken at what I call the Mystic Trail. However, the actual name of it is Heart of Iowa Trail. And this Heart of Iowa Trail kind of goes in many different towns throughout Iowa. So you're going to see that sign for Heart of Iowa Trail quite a bit if you visit. Okay, and as you can see, and I'll take this down just a bit as it was to start so you can see the photograph before it's at 100%. Okay, so here is the whole photograph. A lot of wooded area, obviously. So if we take it up to 100% and we go up here, we see this little guy right here. Now this is more along the lines of the size that I am accustomed to photographing. The other one that we saw over here, I'm going to say he's probably maybe about the size of a 2-year-old human toddler. And I only say that because we were way down here and he was way up here. So considering the distance and considering how well I can see him, I'm going to say that's probably about the size that he was. Now, obviously, that's probably not what most people consider fairy size, but it's also not full-size adult human. So if we look at this one, he's a lot smaller. He's not as small as the leaves. He's not less the size of the leaves as many of the fairies I photograph are. However, he is not very big. So we're going to take this down a little bit so I can see what I'm cropping here. And we're going to move it over and move it over. Now, if I'd have had my camera at a totally different angle, I would not have gotten this guy at all since he's clear up at the top of the picture. All right, there he is, and I'm going to increase his size by 100. And then we'll still probably have to, yeah. This Photoshop works a lot different than my old one. This is the most new. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of blur because he is so small. And actually, I think I want to take him back to the 250 size so he's not funky shaped. Okay, that's better. All right, so we can see on this guy, now this photo was taken August 29th, 2016 at the Heart of Iowa Trail. Okay, so we can see he's pretty hairy too. And some people might look at this and say, oh, well, you know, that's just something in the tree. Perhaps a stump or something like that. However, as far as I know, stumps do not have eyes. There's one eye. The other eye, because of the way his head is turned, it's kind of facing this way a bit. We can only see a portion of the other eye, but we can see his nose. We see the hair on the top of his head. And here's his hairy body and one hairy arm. And I think the most fascinating thing about this one to me was his toes. He is literally gripping this branch with his toes. And if you look closely, you can actually see toenail lines where his toenails are. So I thought that was pretty cool. It, you know, for having this little guy be so small and blowing it up and being able to see that kind of detail in him. So he has 4 toes that we can actually see. 1, 2, 3, 4. And at least 3 of them have that definitive toenail line that we can see. Also, it looks like he has 3 fingers here. And there's something that he's holding on to that's a bit oval and it's white. So he's got like the back of his hand facing us. But obviously his face and his toes have no hair, which makes him stand out a little bit more. So if we go backwards again, not to the non-crop, and we go up a little bit so we can find him. We're at 300% right now on this photograph. And there he is. So let's take it down by percentage just a little bit. There's 200%. Now I'm sorry, but anything that has a face where I can see eyes and nose, and this way his mouth is dark but I can see it, and toes and fingers, I cannot look at it over here and say, oh, that's just part of the tree or that's a stump, because he really does, when you look at him in this way, he really does stand out from what you're seeing around. Now, I called him Bigfoot, like I said. I didn't really want to say Bigfoots because I don't think that's a word. And I couldn't really say Bigfoot family because both of these were taken at a completely different place. So at any rate, I'm calling them Bigfoot, even though they're more toddler and fairy size, so that you get the idea of what you're looking at. You might call them something else. You might know them as something else. If so, please leave a comment and let me know what you think perhaps they are. But that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and please don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, etc. See you in the next video.